Hi, I'm Dr. Jesse Riggin, and this week we're going to be talking about energy storage in the body, so how your body deals with different carbohydrates and fats and proteins. I hope you enjoy it, share it, like it on Facebook, and give us some feedback. So the first one, I want to talk about energy storage. So when we eat food, what happens to it? Where does it go? Obviously it goes somewhere, it goes here sometimes, sometimes it builds muscle, sometimes it makes our brain foggy, where does the food go? So, hence the first drawing. And I am not going to try to draw well, I'm just going to try to draw. So the first thing I'm going to draw is a liver, all right? And I'm going to put a little LV down here. The next thing I'm going to draw is a little fat cell.
Are we supposed to be doing this on our
Yep. So now we're on energy storage. So go ahead and just follow along with me. I'm gonna make sure that I'm going in the right order here. Yes, I am. All right, and then all right. So you're gonna laugh here. This is funny. I worked all night on how to draw this.
I can vouch for who came to that
Right?
And we're supposed to draw.
Get it? It's a muscle.
Aww.
All right.
I didn't know it until you said it, and I was like,
Well, I wasn't going to try to draw the hand. I mean, that's too much. All right. So the green we're going to put is what we're going to call the fed state. Red is going to be fasting.
what is fed? Oh, fed.
Fed.
Got it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So we're going to start out with sugar or glucose over here. This is just blood. That would be our venous system. Yeah. And over here, we're going to have fat. So what happens when sugar comes into our blood? Well, we want to have a certain amount of sugar in our blood, but for the most part, what happens when sugar comes into our blood? Just remember, when sugar comes in, it spikes insulin, and insulin kicks off a series of events. And again, Terry, there is a test at the end of this. So
No pressure, it's a Friday.
remember, this is the fed state. And let's see, I'll put my fat over here too. So the little squiggly is fat. The diamond shaped thing, I guess that would be Barb, is that a hexagon?
Yeah.
All right. So what happens? We have to do something with the sugar. So the sugar, first thing the sugar does is it comes into the liver and it goes out to the muscles, right? So we use it in the muscles, and then what we don't use, we have to put it somewhere. It's stored in the muscles to a certain extent, and it's stored in the liver to a certain extent. We have about 12 to 24 hours of sugar in the form of glycogen, which is basically just chains of sugar in these areas. So if we stop eating today, then we'll run out of glycogen in about 24 hours, and then we'll start to burn our fat. So that's kind of what happens. Now we don't have to go that long before we start burning fat, but that's how long we would have. So in the fed state, let's say so we've kind of met all of our energy needs. So what's the next thing we do? So there's a little bit of fat in here as well, in the liver. So the liver starts to convert sugar into fat in the liver, and then it sends the liver, or sends the fat out to the fat cells. And that's essentially what happens. There's a whole lot of biochemical pathways that are in there, but that's basically what happens in the fed state. So what happens in the fasting state? So if we remove sugar, we basically have to I have to put one more green here too, because we do need to get fat out to other places. So there is a little bit of this going on too. So fat is going out into the blood. So if we stop eating, we need to maintain a little bit of sugar here in the blood. But if I remove the sugar, I need to have a way to make sugar, and the body does that. It can turn fat directly into sugar, and it can circulate throughout the body, maintain the blood sugar. So if I stop eating, we'll start right here. Or if I stop eating fat, or if I stop eating, just say if we're in our fasting state, we'll put our little squiggly in here. Basically, we reverse everything, you know. So we have to take fat. It goes from the fat cell into the liver, because the liver is kind of the powerhouse here. We need some of the enzymes in the liver to convert it back into glucose. And I'll put my glucose molecule in there. God, I hope my biochemistry teachers aren't watching this. All right. And then it's going to go back up here and make our sugar. It's also going to create something called beta-hydroxybutyl or beta-butyric acid. That's where the keto. That's a keto acid. That is, and I'm just gonna call it. I have my little beta. So beta-hydroxy. Yep. Beta-hydroxybutyric acid. So a little bit of a mouthful there.
Please don't test me on that.
The interesting thing about this, and you don't have to remember all this stuff. You just have to remember that there's a molecule that the body creates that causes a little bit of acidosis, and we'll look at this guy more in the next slide when we look at the mitochondria. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's, but I'm gonna erase this so everybody takes their picture. Yep.
Yeah.
And we also get a little bit going into the blood, because we have to get fat into the muscles as well. All right. So, but basically everything kind of converges to maintain the sugar, the sugar and the blood sugar and homeostasis there. All right. So what happens if I eat protein? It's really a much more complicated picture, but basically, if you eat protein can in a kind of a circuitous route get turned into something similar to, kind of in a similar pathway to the butyric acid, and the sugar pathways. But anyways, the big thing that happens when we make protein is we make something that is somewhat toxic to the body, and that is ammonia. So that's something to keep in mind. Our body doesn't really like to use protein that much as energy. It can use protein as energy. There's some pathways out there that turn it into high energy molecules. But the big thing that's important to remember is you make this nitrogenous waste, and it's not as efficient as the fat and the carbohydrates. Our fats and our carbohydrates are, for all intents and purposes, made to provide energy. Proteins are kind of the building blocks, and there may be people that argue with me on that, but biochemistry kind of says different. So that's it. That's energy storage. Now, wouldn't it be cool if we could stay in this fasting state and just kind of get rid of all the green arrows, and stay in the fasting state, but still get to eat?
Yes.
Would that be cool?
Yeah. Burn fat and still eat. Absolutely.
Yeah, but we're human.
Right. So remember what I said? The sugar causes insulin to spike. And everything in green is really driven by insulin. If I eat fat, I don't get an insulin spike. Because if I eat fat, what happens to the fat is it has to go into the liver. So if I eat fat, and I guess we could put this, I'm just going to put it in black. So if I eat fat, no insulin spike, and the fat gets transferred down here. We never get that. We never get blood sugar from it when we ingest it until we go through all of this. So we're not even using the fat to a certain extent. We're not using the fat that we eat then. We're using the fat down here in the fat cells, and that's the whole premise of the ketogenic diet. That's why you can maintain that fat burning metabolism and still eat. Like, how do you burn fat and eat a bunch of fat? And this is why, is because you never get the insulin spike, so you never tell your body to store fat. You're always telling your body to burn fat. That's the whole premise behind a lot of these diets out there. So, anybody know where the ketogenic diet came from? It was about 80 some years ago. Did they ever talk about that? So grab your history. Sure. Yeah, I don't know the history of the Atkins as much, but so can somebody grab the history of the ketogenic diet? What's the journal that it came from?
Department of Pediatrics and Neurology.
Yep. Epilepsy.
Oh, right.
It was created for epilepsy, and it was created because of this right here. Because for years and years and years before we had all the anti-epileptic medications, they would treat epilepsy with fasting. And they got really good results with it, according to the article. Never treated epilepsy, but according to the article and according to the data that I looked at, they had pretty good efficacy with treating epilepsy with fasting. So why is that? They're still working out the details of the mechanisms of action. I don't know that anybody. I'm already seeing people yawning, so I'm not going to go down that route. So what they wanted to do is they said, well, we can't have people just fast for the rest of their life. I mean, it treats the epilepsy, but you have to put them in a concentration camp. Like, you can't do that to people. So they came up with this diet based on this science right here to keep somebody in a fasting state. This is and they end up getting very, very similar results, and that's kind of what that whole article is about. Hey Barb, can I get some water?
Sure, there's a bottle.
Oh yeah, here we go. So anyways, that's where it came from, and then as time went on, people started to see the other health benefits. What they noticed is even people who didn't have epilepsy were starting to get more lean. They were starting to lose weight. They were starting to have other health benefits. They would report that they think clearer. So and again, like all the mechanisms of action are really interesting to read about. But basically, what we find is that this diet, by maintaining this fasting metabolism, we can burn fat, but we also drastically improve our mental clarity. Fasting is one of the only things that we've found so far that can actually regenerate central nervous tissue. They find this in mice, is that if they create some sort of brain damage within the mice, and they put them through some fasting, they actually start to see some regeneration. And I might be misquoting exactly how they do it, but that's essentially what they find is when they expose mice to fasting, they regenerate brain cells. It's pretty interesting stuff. One of the only if we made a drug that could do that, well, it would be flying off the shelves, and it'd cost $1,000 a bottle. So again, that was our video on energy storage. Hope you enjoyed it. Please share it with your friends. Give us lots of feedback. The next video that's going to be coming up next week is going to be on mitochondrial health, so it should be a good time.